In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the assignments that are going to be due for week 1, and I'll also give an introduction to the museum assignment, the kind of final one that's worth 150 points. So as I discussed in the other video, right, you want to complete all the readings, complete all the videos, and while you're doing that, you would have the response paper open or printed out or something so you can take notes, or you can start filling it out as you watch those. And it's key that you look at the response paper before you look at the readings and the videos. So just to give you a sense of what a response paper looks like and the kind of questions. So, we had this first thing, answer the following questions based on Introduction History Beyond the Classroom. And that is an article. I usually put the articles first. And then you have questions that you should answer based on that. How has public history changed? What are public historians? And it just says here, beginning of the book and introduction, that's to give you an idea of where the answers can be found, right? Sometimes you can have a good reading, but it's a little disorganized. And I wanted to make it clear. Then for the next question based on this article, what problems does public history face? What does the author see as the purpose of public history? That's based on the section background to public history. And then so you've got all these questions based on this one article. Then we go to the next one, answer the following questions based on the museum defined article, right? And there it gives you assignment. All these questions are based on that article. And it just keeps on going, right? All the different articles you have to read. And then it switches to videos. Answer the following questions based on the What is Public History videos. It's got these 4 questions here. You would answer on the video. Answer the following questions based on the introduction to the museum video. And then so on and so forth. Now these are videos I made. But then you have other ones like this. Which museum did you find that's also one I made. But then you have ones that I'm pulling from elsewhere. Answer the following questions based on the Tank Museum, the Sherman video. This is to give you an idea of what kind of museums are out there and how you can make things interesting. And I thought they did a really good job taking what could have been a very boring video and made it really interesting in various ways. Then there's this answer the following questions based on A New Home for African American Treasures, where they interview people and you get a sense about the emotion that goes along with these things. So that's basically gives you an idea. You'll be watching these videos. Now, sometimes there's also podcasts that I produced with a student. So we had a student named Ashley Hampton. Some of you may know her, but she interned at 2 museums. And so it made sense, I thought, to interview her to ask her what she thought about this experience and what advice she would give. And so that's an interview you would hear with me and Ashley. There's also questions on that. But like I said, all these links can be found in the readings and videos. And they should be in order. It should be relatively easy to do that. So that gives you an idea of the first response paper, how you would complete that. And you may say, wow, that's a lot of work. Well, remember, each day or, each week of a class in a summer class is equal to like 2.5 weeks of a regular semester class. So that's why it seems like a lot, because it's kind of a compacted class. So the next thing I want to go over is the museum exhibit critique paper. So this is an example of one of the papers that you're going to see kind of different every week. So for the museum exhibit critique paper, for this assignment, you will virtually visit one of the following online museums. I'm recording this when the COVID virus is still an issue. I don't really want to tell students to be going to museums when there's we're supposed to be social distancing. If the situation changes later, we can revisit it. But for now, I just want you to choose one of 4 museums: the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the National Museum of American History, Museum of the American Revolution, or the War Memorial of Korea. And these are all online museums. You would go to the museum website and then write a paper of at least 750 words describing a particular exhibit, what that exhibit teaches, how the exhibit fits into the overall story being told by the museum, and what you think the exhibit does well. This is meant to kind of introduce you to start thinking more critically about how museums work, not simply, oh, this is teaching me history, but how is it teaching me history? And the reason we're doing that is because you've got this final assignment, this museum project, right? And for this assignment, it's due the 5th week, but I'm going to introduce it here because you need to be thinking about it. You will design a museum exhibit based around a certain theme and time. Your project will consist of the following parts. First part is a written proposal worth 50 points. And this is where you have to state the time period. It shouldn't be more than 10 years, so you can't, do the 19th century Victorian clothing because that's just too long of a time period. Place should not be larger than a county, right? You can't do, I'm going to do the history of Japan in the Tokugawa period. Well, that's over 250 years of a whole country. You can't do that. And theme, such as children, games, medicine, the Battle of Gettysburg, something like that. your exhibit will cover and why you've chosen that particular time period, place, and theme. An exhibit title that conveys your big idea. In the lectures, I explain what I mean by big idea. You need a clear thesis statement explaining your big idea, right? So you need a title and a thesis statement. Museum exhibits need thesis statements, and I go over this in the videos. At least 3 descriptive captions that provide evidence for your thesis statement. One of these can be a primary source. So, your thesis is going to have, your exhibit will have descriptions. It'll have typing, it'll have little signs, and you got to make those. Descriptions of at least 5 items that will make up your exhibit, an explanation of why those items should be a part of it and how they support your thesis statement, right? So the idea is your exhibit can't just be a bunch of stuff. It's got to have a message. It's got to have a point, and they have to all connect. You have to have a description for me that explains what's going on there. You have to have the source where this item could be obtained. If it's a website, you need to include the address. It's okay to have items there that you couldn't realistically get a hold of. That's fine for this exhibit or for this assignment. At least one of these items must be a primary source document. If it's a longer document, then an excerpt or excerpts will work. The explanations here will not be viewed by visitors. They're just there for me to better understand the exhibit. For F, you will have the captions that would display with the 5 items. These are what the visitors would read. Those should be no longer than 25 words. You have to learn to write short and punchy, very concise statements, because people don't want to sit in a museum and read for hours and hours. They can just sit at home and read a book and do that. They want to see the images, and they want very clear text that tells them what's going on. You will also have to talk about how you utilize light, sound, and space to enhance the experience of your exhibit. So you have to think about structure. And you have to explain what museum your proposed exhibit would ideally be displayed at, and what audience and why it is appropriate for that venue and audience. You would also need, and this part is worth 25 points, a single sheet poster with images aimed at the potential audience advertising the exhibit and its grand opening. It doesn't have to be a physical poster. An electronic one is fine. You would have, worth another 25 points, a plan for a grand opening party that will raise community interest in the exhibit and attract the attention of potential donors to the museum. In the articles you'll read for week 1, it talks a lot about the importance of donors, of keeping those people happy, of listening to them, because your museum will not exist without people giving it money. Right? Your plan should be at least 500 words in length. That's part of the assignments worth 25 points. A photograph of your exhibit on poster board of high enough quality I can make out the details. I don't have to be able to read the captions because I have them earlier, or a diagram what your exhibit will look like. Whatever option is pursued, it must be done in a professional manner. So all sections are due in the time and date noted in the schedule. Each of the 4 parts will have its own upload link and should be prepared as a separate document. Failure to revise in accordance with my critique of the assignments built into this one will lead to a penalty to your grade. So that's like the museum reports. Those will have you will act as basically kind of a rough draft, give me an idea of what you're thinking of doing so I can give you guidance. So I know this seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but that's the idea. This class is preparing you to do this. And we have multiple assignments to help you do this. And when it's done, you should come up with something really cool. And I had a lot of students come up with some really neat things. So I look forward to seeing your assignments for week 1 and this final assignment. I'm sure you'll all do a fantastic job.